Another topic that I think is worth talking about here today that we hear a lot is a question about how leaders can create a strategy to keep absorbing all of the fast-paced new information coming about this technology and its capabilities while still, maintaining a clear direction and, keeping the trains running. Like usually in most businesses and law firms or businesses, it's not like we have a bunch of extra time where we're like, oh, I guess we could use all Monday. We don't do anything on Mondays. Let's have Mondays be our tech learning day. We're busy. We're already doing more than we have minutes for. So how do you think about this when you talk to law firm leaders or leaders of other legal organizations about creating a strategy for this moment of taking in the new, but continuing with a clear path?
Yeah, keeping up to speed on the developments in this area is virtually impossible. And I know you and I both spend a significant amount of time following a lot of news and thought leaders. And we have things where we get on to plan for the podcast that we haven't heard that the other person has heard. So I think it's sort of a fool's errand to try to keep pace with the day-to-day, minute-to-minute developments. But I think a smart thing to do as an organization is to work together to create a framework that represents a strategy that is aligned with your organization's goals and mission, and then think about how that framework can absorb these changes and help you make decisions more quickly because you don't have every Monday to take off and, examine what happened over the last week and how it fits in. But when there are major developments, looking back at that framework and thinking about how it applies to the framework and what decision would result, or adapting the framework as you go if things are changing so significantly. And I know, Bridget, we're going to talk in an upcoming episode about the transformative work that you and your team have done at the AAA. And I know you also have developed some questions that might be helpful for leaders to start thinking about and folding them into their own frameworks. Would you be open to sharing those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I should say I'm excited to talk about how we're applying a lot of these things you and I are talking about, but that's going to come in a future episode. But in the meantime, I think the framework has been really useful for us. And I should again, I think Ethan Malik actually is how I first started categorizing these. So I should always just footnote Ethan Malik for everything I say. Could we just do that?
Blanket footnote
so nobody's like, okay. So but I do think these are great questions for any leader of any organization, but absolutely any legacy legal organization, which is almost every legal organization because we've all been able to withstand all disruption for a really long time. One question is, what do we do now that is no longer valuable, that people won't need because they can do it themselves, or there are just going to be better, faster ways to do it, cheaper ways to do it. Let's always be thinking about that and always be categorizing some of our idea flow into that bucket. What can I not do today that I'm likely to be able to do tomorrow? Like, where is this going so that something that I can't offer people today, I am very likely going to be able to offer people tomorrow. You have to keep a list of those things and figure out what it's going to mean to get you there, and obviously what it's going to cost, and in terms of like time and people and all the above. A third is, how do I democratize work and open new markets or grow current markets to a scale that wouldn't be possible today? Like, what are the ways in which we can take things we do now and just scale them, basically? That feels to me like another bucket. And again, I think sometimes things will cross buckets a little bit, but it's worth thinking about those in particular. And finally, how do I move work up market so that I am competing in new ways? What are the new ways that I can be competing, because some of the things we spend a lot of time on right now can be moved upstream? Again, we can talk in a lot of specific ways of what that's actually looked like in the day-to-day at the AAA. And I'm lucky that we already had a sophisticated, robust, resourced innovation program to be able to map all this onto. But that's been a helpful way to categorize what can otherwise feel like just a swirling set of questions, given all the change that feels like it's around us.
I love
What do you think about
those
all that?
four questions. I think it's like a North Star framework for thinking about the future. I think the second one, the what can I not do today that I could do tomorrow, is one that really challenges a lot of lawyers because we haven't been forced to reimagine the way that we work. So having some priming activities to even loosen up those creative muscles and get us thinking about what we could possibly do. We've been so tethered to, at least in the private sector, to this billable hour model for so long. And it's been a really successful, lucrative model for many firms, but it's also a huge limitation on what we're able to achieve. We only each have 24 hours in a day. We have to sleep during some of that time and live during other times. So I think the two last questions, how do I democratize work and open up new markets, and how do I bring work up market, are important for different parts of the industry. So that democratized piece for really, really big global firms that are highly leveraged and rely on the generation of enormous amounts of billable hours at the junior levels in particular will be impacted by this technology in ways that challenge their existing business model. But if you have an abundance mindset and you work with your organization around mitigating loss aversion, or the idea that you are trying to cling to a world that is rapidly changing, you could find so many different ways to serve new markets. You have been an advocate for civil justice reform, and 90% of American civil legal needs, something like that, go unmet. That is enormous untapped opportunity to serve small businesses and individuals, right? And then the fourth question, how do I bring work up market and compete in new ways? I think if you're a small or solo practitioner, if you're a plaintiff side lawyer, if you're a boutique firm, if you're a public law department, or a really revenue deprived legal services organization, this is such a game changer for you. You can start to level the playing field. You can start to do things you weren't capable of doing and really compete and transform the way that law is practiced. And I think that's incredibly exciting for both groups, really.